On a cold April afternoon in 1945, as American and Soviet forces closed in from opposite sides of a shattered Germany, a man who once commanded millions sat in a dim underground bunker, listening to the distant thunder of artillery. The empire he had promised would last 1,000 years had survived barely 12. To understand how the world arrived at that moment and why it still echoes in American classrooms, military academies, and political debates, you have to begin not in a bunker, but in the restless mind of a failed artist. Adolf Hitler was not born into power nor into greatness. He entered the world in 1889 in the small Austrian town of Braunau am Inn, a border settlement pressed between empires. His father was strict and domineering, a customs official who valued discipline. His mother was gentle and protective. The boy who would one day shake the globe grew up neither rich nor influential. He dreamed not of conquest, but of painting. As a teenager in Vienna, Hitler imagined himself an artist of renown. He applied twice to the Academy of Fine Arts and was rejected twice. The letters of refusal were blunt. He lacked talent in figure drawing. The Academy suggested architecture, but architecture required credentials and education he did not possess. Rejection hardened him. Vienna, then a multicultural city teeming with Jews, Slavs, Hungarians, and Germans, became the place where his resentments fermented. He spent years drifting, painting postcards and sleeping in shelters, absorbing nationalist pamphlets and racial theories that were popular in certain political circles of the time. When World War I erupted in 1914, it offered him something he had not yet found: belonging. He enlisted in the German army and served as a dispatch runner. The war gave him purpose, comradeship, and a sense of mission. When Germany surrendered in 1918, the defeat stunned him. Many Germans felt betrayed by the Treaty of Versailles, which imposed harsh penalties, territorial losses, and crushing economic reparations. For Hitler, the humiliation of defeat became personal. He would later claim Germany had been stabbed in the back by internal enemies, a myth that fueled bitterness across the nation. In the early 1920s, amid economic chaos and hyperinflation, Hitler joined a small political group in Munich called the German Workers' Party. He quickly rose through its ranks, renaming it the National Socialist German Workers' Party, the Nazi Party. He was not an intellectual theorist, he was a performer. His speeches electrified audiences. He blamed Germany's suffering on communists, Jews, and the Versailles Treaty. He promised revival, pride, jobs, and unity. In 1923, convinced that Germany was ripe for revolution, Hitler attempted a coup in Munich, the beer hall putsch. It failed. He was arrested and sentenced to prison. Many expected his political career to end there. Instead, prison became a turning point. During his incarceration, he dictated Mein Kampf, outlining his ideology: extreme nationalism, racial hierarchy, anti-Semitism, and expansion eastward for living space. The book was rambling and often incoherent, but its intent was unmistakable. After his release, Hitler shifted strategy. Rather than seize power violently, he would pursue it legally. The Nazi Party reorganized, expanded propaganda efforts, and built paramilitary units like the SA. The Great Depression in 1929 proved decisive. Germany's economy collapsed, unemployment soared, faith in democratic institutions crumbled. In that vacuum, Hitler's promises of strength and revival resonated. By 1933, he was appointed Chancellor of Germany. Within months, he dismantled democracy. The Reichstag fire was used to suspend civil liberties. Political opponents were arrested. Trade unions were dissolved. A one-party state emerged. By 1934, after the Night of the Long Knives eliminated internal rivals, and following the death of President Paul Hindenburg, Hitler consolidated power as Führer. For many Americans observing from afar, the 1930s were a period of cautious isolation. The United States was recovering from its own Great Depression. Across the Atlantic, Hitler rebuilt Germany's military in defiance of the Versailles Treaty. He reoccupied the Rhineland. He annexed Austria. He demanded the Sudetenland from Czechoslovakia. Each move was bold, and each was met with limited resistance from European powers eager to avoid another war. Then came September 1st, 1939. Germany invaded Poland. Britain and France declared war. World War II had begun. The war unfolded with stunning speed. German forces used Blitzkrieg, lightning war, combining tanks, aircraft, and rapid infantry movement. Poland fell. Denmark and Norway followed, then Belgium, the Netherlands, and France. By mid-1940, Paris was occupied. The image of Nazi troops marching beneath the Eiffel Tower shocked the world. Britain stood alone in Western Europe. The Battle of Britain raged in the skies. German bombers pounded London and other cities, but Britain did not surrender. Across the ocean, Americans debated involvement. President Franklin D. Roosevelt supported aid to the Allies, but public opinion remained divided. The memory of World War I lingered. In June 1941, Hitler made a decision that would alter history. He invaded the Soviet Union. Operation Barbarossa opened the largest land war in human history. The German army advanced rapidly at first, capturing vast territories. But the Soviet Union was immense, and winter was unforgiving. The invasion would become a grinding catastrophe. Even as battles raged, another horror unfolded. The Nazi regime implemented what it called the final solution. Jews were rounded up, deported, and murdered in extermination camps such as Auschwitz, Treblinka, and Sobibor. Millions perished. Roma, disabled individuals, political prisoners, and others were also targeted. The scale of industrialized killing remains one of history's darkest chapters. In December 1941, the war truly became global. Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. The United States entered the conflict. Soon, American troops were fighting in North Africa, Italy, and eventually France. The D-Day landings in June 1944 marked a turning point. Allied forces pushed west from the beaches of Normandy, while Soviet forces pushed from the east. Hitler's leadership during the war grew increasingly erratic. He overruled generals. He refused tactical retreats. He believed in destiny and willpower over logistics and reality. By 1945, Germany was collapsing under relentless assault. Cities lay in ruins, supply lines were shattered, morale crumbled. In April 1945, Soviet troops encircled Berlin. Hitler retreated into his bunker. There, isolated and defiant, he married Eva Braun. Days later, he took his own life. His body was burned outside the bunker as the Third Reich disintegrated. For Americans, the end of the war in Europe was both triumph and reckoning. Soldiers who liberated concentration camps confronted horrors that defied comprehension. The Nuremberg trials sought justice, prosecuting leading Nazis for crimes against humanity. The revelations reshaped international law and human rights standards. Hitler's legacy is not merely the story of a dictator's rise and fall. It is a cautionary tale about economic despair, propaganda, and the fragility of democratic institutions. It illustrates how resentment can be weaponized, how fear can be manipulated, and how ordinary citizens can become participants in extraordinary evil. In the decades since, historians have debated how such a figure rose to power in a modern, educated society. Some point to the humiliation of Versailles. Others emphasize the global economic collapse. Many examine the power of propaganda and charismatic leadership. The answers are complex, layered, and still studied in American universities and military colleges. The United States emerged from World War II as a global superpower. The conflict accelerated technological innovation, from radar to nuclear weapons. It reshaped alliances, leading to the formation of NATO. It set the stage for the Cold War. In that sense, Hitler's ambitions inadvertently helped create the modern geopolitical order. Yet, beyond geopolitics, the story resonates on a human level. It reminds Americans and the world of the cost of unchecked hatred. It challenges societies to defend pluralism and the rule of law. It underscores the importance of free press, independent courts, and civic engagement. The boy who once failed at art school did not begin with tanks and armies. He began with grievances and words. His rise was not inevitable. It was shaped by circumstances, decisions, and collective choices. That is perhaps the most unsettling lesson of all. In the ruins of Berlin, as American and Soviet soldiers met amid the wreckage, the world stood at a crossroads. The war had claimed tens of millions of lives. Cities were flattened, families were shattered. But from that devastation emerged a renewed commitment, however imperfect, to prevent such catastrophe again. The United Nations was formed. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights was drafted. International cooperation, though fragile, became a guiding principle. The memory of World War II influenced generations of American foreign policy decisions, from containment strategies to humanitarian interventions. History does not repeat itself in identical form, but it echoes. The story of Adolf Hitler is not told to sensationalize nor to glorify, but to understand. It is studied in classrooms in New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, and small towns across America because it forces difficult questions. How does democracy erode? How do lies become normalized? How can societies guard against extremism? In the end, the 1,000-year Reich lasted 12 years. The cities rebuilt, Germany transformed into a democratic state, Europe integrated economically and politically. Survivors told their stories. Museums and memorials rose where camps once stood. But the shadow remains, not as a looming inevitability, but as a warning etched into the 20th century. The bunker in Berlin is gone, buried beneath layers of modern development, yet the lessons from that underground chamber still resonate across oceans. Because history is not only about the past, it is about vigilance in the present.